Hey, welcome back to my channel. Today I'd like to talk about 1987's Lethal Weapon, another Christmas-themed movie. This movie was released in March of 1987 on a budget of 15 million bucks. Um, Joel Silver produced this movie. I mean, Joel Silver was the action producer in the 80s and 90s. He produced Commando, Predator. He did all the Lethal Weapon movies, Die Hard 1 and 2. I don't believe he was involved with Die Hard with a Vengeance, but I know the first two he was involved, and then countless other action films. Um, and funny enough, it was directed by Richard Donner. Richard Donner was not the first choice for this movie, though. Joel Silver actually wanted Ridley Scott, which would have been very interesting and pretty cool to see what Ridley Scott would have did with this film. But unfortunately, when Ridley Scott did Blade Runner with Warner Brothers, there was bad blood there. So when Joel Silver said he wanted to hire Ridley Scott, Warner Brothers was like, no. And Ridley Scott kind of felt the same way. He was interested, but he didn't want to deal with that studio at the moment. So they hired Richard Donner, who up to that point, I mean, Richard Donner had a pretty successful directing career up to that point. He had done The Omen, which was a hit, Superman the movie, which was one of the biggest movies of all time back then. He did Superman 2, at least half of it, or 75% of it, before he got canned. Which, if you've ever seen the documentary about Superman 2 and about how much Dick Donner hated the producers of that movie, and the producers didn't like him, he almost got in a fight with them, and then they fired him and brought in another director. It's pretty interesting. It's pretty interesting to see how that movie came about and why it changed from the original concept and all that. And then Richard Donner had done The Goonies, which I know is a cult classic. Around this time he produced The Lost Boys. He did all the Lethal Weapon movies. So, I mean, Dick Donner is a good director. I wouldn't say he's one of the best of all time, but he's definitely a solid director, and he's been around for a long time. And he knows how to shoot action in a nice picture. So that was a good choice on their part. And this was the first major American movie for Mel Gibson. Up to that point, he did some small films and the Mad Max trilogy, but this was his first big American role. Danny Glover had done mostly TV, some movies, but this was his first big break in the movie business. Gary Busey's in there. This was his big break too, because his movie career was not going well, and this kind of gave him a career after that. The great Tom Atkins is in there in a small role as Murtaugh's old Vietnam buddy. The script was written by Shane Black. This was Shane Black's big break. This is what put him on the map, especially as an action writer. The same year, the release of the Monster Squad had come out, and he had co-written that movie with his buddy Fred Dekker, who actually Fred Dekker directed the movie. And I really liked that movie. That movie bombed, but this was Shane Black's big hit. And funny enough, Dick Donner, everybody loved Shane Black's script. When Dick Donner came on and read the script, he liked it, but he said it was, his quote, it's too dark. So he brought another writer in to do some rewrites to lighten it up a little bit. They actually removed some action sequences because the original script had more action sequences and lightened the movie a little bit. They said it was really, really dark. So they lightened the movie up a little bit, and but it's still Shane Black's script for the most part. I'm going to spoil this movie. It's been out since '87. If you're a movie fan, I assume you saw it. If you haven't seen it, I'll spoil it right now. My rating, I highly recommend this movie. It's classic, and especially, it's pretty much the gold standard for buddy cop movies. Up until that point, I mean, I don't consider Beverly Hills Cop a buddy cop movie. But up until, this was the gold standard. I mean, 90, we got Tango and Cash with Kurt Russell and Sylvester Stallone, which I like that movie a lot, but it's not as good as Lethal Weapon. And it wasn't until 95, when we got Will Smith and Martin Lawrence in Bad Boys, did we get another buddy cop movie that was pretty good. I mean, they've tried over the years with different combinations, but this is definitely the gold standard. In the beginning of the movie, the first shot of the movie, we see this girl get up on the balcony, the railing of this balcony, like 20 floors up in this apartment building, and she jumps off and hits this car. Obviously, she's dead. Cut to the next morning, we're introduced to Murtaugh. He's turning 50 that day. His family come in and they sing him happy birthday, and he gets called out to this suicide. And when one of his coworkers tells him the name of the girl and the parent's name, he knows the father. That's his old army buddy from Nam that he hadn't spoken to in like 10 years. And then we're introduced to Riggs, Mel Gibson's character. And we see him at this Christmas tree lot talking to these three guys about buying Coke. He's a cop, so it's a sting, obviously. And this scene really introduces us to what Riggs is like. He's a loose cannon and possibly psychotic. And maybe has a death wish. Which we come to find out shortly after. He lives on a trailer near the beach, and he just recently lost his wife. And he's having a hard time dealing with that. And there's even a moment where he's sitting on the couch crying with a picture of his wife in his hands and his gun in the other hand. And he loads the gun, puts a bolt in the chamber, puts it to his head, puts it in his mouth, starts pulling the trigger, and decides he's not going to do it. So this guy obviously has some problems. And Murtaugh has not had a partner up to this point, and they assign Riggs to Murtaugh, and Murtaugh's not happy about it because he's heard this guy's looking for a psych pension, and he doesn't want to get killed by this guy. So for the first couple days they're together, he's giving him Riggs shit all the time, like, let's try not to shoot anybody today, let's not get killed, blah, blah, blah. And then eventually Murtaugh starts softening on Riggs and realizes, this is a good man, he's had some problems, he's gone through a tough time, but he's a good guy. And we're introduced to Gary Busey's character and his organization. He has somebody he works under, but he's the main bad guy, honestly. And these guys are ex-CIA contractors from Vietnam and are running heroin in L.A. And they're tied. This organization is tied to Murtaugh's old Vietnam friend, that was played by Tom Atkins. And they realize they killed his daughter to let Tom Atkins know that he better stay in line. And Tom Atkins talks to Murtaugh about finding these guys. He's pretty much reaching out for help, and he gets killed. They kill him off, and Riggs and Murtaugh got to stop these people. And in the process, Murtaugh's daughter gets kidnapped by this organization, and they have to go get her back. And they get her back, and they kill a lot of people. And at the end of the movie, Riggs and Gary Busey's character have an all-out brawl on Murtaugh's front lawn. And they end up killing him. And at the end of the movie, Murtaugh kind of accepts Riggs into his family, and they become friends. And as we know, they made 3 more movies after this. The movie is very well done. It's very well shot. The action's really well done. The acting's great. The banter between Mel Gibson and Danny Glover is fantastic. And any other characters in the movie, it's all really well done. The only part in the action directing that I would criticize is when the fight first starts on Murtaugh's lawn at the end of the movie. They're shooting it handheld, which I don't have a problem with that, but it's really close up, and for the first 30 seconds of the fight, you can't tell who's hitting who's throwing what punch, and then finally they pull back and you can see the rest of it. That's my only really criticism of the movie, directing-wise. I mean, everything else is done really well. I mean, we got helicopters, explosions, gunfights. Everything's handled really well. You can tell what's going on. You have a good sense of geography of everything, where everybody is. So yeah, Dick Donner, is a good director, and he handled the movie very well. Mel Gibson, Danny Glover, there's nothing else to say. They're great in the movie. Everybody remembers them as those characters. I mean, Mel Gibson's done a lot of hit movies, but everybody thinks of Lethal Weapon when you think of Mel Gibson, or Mad Max. Those are pretty much the two. To rate this movie, I would give it a 9 out of 10. I really, really like this movie. There's a few little things, nothing really to get crazy about, but I give it a 9 out of 10. It's definitely a classic. Again, it's a really good action film, but it's also a good cop story about these guys. And you can tell Mel Gibson's character, getting to know the Murtaugh family, gives him a reason to live. And the rest of the series, 1 through 4, I really like 2. 2's really well done. I even like 3 and 4. I know those are the ones that get shit on the most by people, but I think they're fun. And some of the characters they introduce going forward, they're fun to have in there. They're not as good as the first 2, but I like 3 and 4 as well. But yeah, I give the movie 9 out of 10. If you've never seen it, give it a watch. It's definitely a really good action film. And that's all I have on that one. Thank you for watching this video. If you like what you saw, hit the subscribe button down below. If you've seen the movie and you like it, or even if you don't like it, let me know. Leave a comment. We can have a discussion about it. Cinema's subjective, so some people might not like it, but I really like this movie. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you soon. See ya. Bye.